Hey, Walt from StogieReview.com here with another video cigar review, and this time around I'm kind of doing a follow-up to the last review I did. If you remember, I smoked the EP Carrillo Ilancos, which was the sort of rebranding of the 2010 limited edition. And what I have is the second sample that came in the package that I got in the mail not terribly long ago, and this is the EP Carrillo New Wave Connceticut. Now, this cigar comes in 4 sizes. So to give you the rundown really quick. Stellas, which is a 5 1/8 by 52. The Brilliant 5 by 50, basically a Robusto. Divinos, which is 6 by 52, and Gran Via, which is 7 by 49. So we have all the standard sizes and an Ecuadorian Connceticut wrapper. So with that basic information out of the way, and as far as the price goes, the smallest is $4.50. Then the Robusto is $5.25, Toro is $6.25, and the Churchill is $7. So with all that said, let's kind of take a look at the cigar itself, and then get to smoking it. So first and foremost, the color looks good. It's consistent from head to foot. I'm not seeing any flaws jumping out at me. Veins are pretty small. The seam that spirals down the cigar kind of disappears and just kind of becomes camouflaged in with the smaller veins. It's a nice thin line. I'm not sure that I'm crazy about the band. I like the darker band better. Not that it makes the cigar smoke any different, but just kind of throwing that out there. The cap doesn't look bad. It rolls over the shoulder a good bit. It's pressed down. It's not lifting anywhere. The only problem I'm seeing is I got a crack at the top, which really shouldn't matter too much because I'll be clipping that off so you can see it. But it shouldn't make much of a difference. Now, you may notice like all this extra movement. I have an ottoman right in front of my chair, and generally I set the camera directly behind it. And I have a tendency to kick the ottoman and shake the camera or shift it back. And today I just kind of pushed the camera back a little bit further to give myself some extra room. And now I'm sort of fighting the distance by scooting to the edge of my chair so I can show you everything up close. But let's get this thing started, and we'll see how it goes. It's got a really interesting aroma. It picked up. It was packaged with a piece of cedar, and it picked up some of the Spanish cedar aroma, but it also has a bit of vanilla. And that aroma is coming off of the wrapper. Not really getting much of anything off the foot. So this is actually going to be my first cigar today. It is about 4:40 p.m. and I've had a pretty long day, so I'm really looking forward to this. Not a real stressful day, just a long day. A lot of running around, visiting family. Just your general everyday stuff with kids or with child. I'm getting some of that cedar on the cold draw. Oh, the pre-light draw is fantastic. There's a little bit of resistance, but I would imagine this is going to produce tons and tons of smoke. Actually, just kind of glancing at myself over on the screen, it looks like I'm a bit darker than usual. This was kind of a spur-of-the-moment video. I just got a message from Jerry, and he had some problems with his last video that he recorded. and we needed something for tomorrow, so I just kind of jumped on it and decided to smoke my last EP Carrillo New Wave, and just put a review together, kind of down and dirty and really fast. And it looks like the lighting is a bit off, so maybe when I turn the camera off for the first break, I'll have to see what I can do about brightening that up. First puff's got a lot of power, especially through the sinus. You get that very heavy, mildly stingy sensation. It's got a nice buttery texture, a little bit of a kind of a salty aftertaste. Good supply of smoke. It's nice and dense. It's got a bit of pepper through the retrohale. And we're off to a really good start. One of my favorite things about the cigar, and again, I've only had, this is my second. I only got 2 samples. The first one I had, it started off really powerful, just like this one. And it makes you really think about that misconception you hear all the time. Well, you know, Connceticut cigars are mild. And there's a handful of them that aren't. And this one kind of reminds me of the Oliva Connceticut, a little bit like the Camacho Connceticut, like the 601 Black. All of those cigars were, I've heard numerous people sort of describe them as a wolf in sheep's clothing. They're very flavorful, and they have some power behind them, and you know, they're wrapped in this non-intimidating Connceticut wrapper, and you know, it really surprises a lot of people. And this cigar is very much the same way. It's got the power, it's got the strength, lots of flavor, and you know, and a lot of people are going to pick this cigar up and look at the wrapper and think, oh, you know, this is going to be mild, and they're really going to be surprised. Hopefully for the better. At least for me, it was for the better. I'm really happy with the power and strength behind it. But that's where we're at. So I'm going to see if I can maybe adjust this lighting a little bit, and then I'll be back. We'll take a look at the first third of my EP Carrillo New Wave, and we'll go from there. So sit tight. Well, I'm really enjoying the cigar. Just kind of like melting into this leather club chair here. Just relaxing. I was listening to a gun podcast for a few minutes, and just really enjoying the cigar. It's got a nice creamy texture to it that coats the palate really well. But before I do that, let's take a look at the ash. It's burning extraordinarily well. It's got a nice light color. It's very bright. It seems to be holding pretty firm. I actually went to break the ash off a few minutes ago, and it wouldn't budge. So I thought, oh, you know, I should probably, let that grow a little bit longer, and then I'll show it on camera rather than, show you a freshly tapped cigar. But burning characteristics are great. Lots of smoke, nice and dense, easy to get through the sinuses, coats the palate well. It's probably medium bodied, full flavored though. It's got, as I mentioned earlier, a nice buttery kind of a texture to it. Some pepper through the sinus. I'm not getting so much of the Spanish cedar that I picked up on the cold draw, and on the initial light, I think I may have gotten a little bit, but I'm not noticing that now. It's just more of a nice natural tobacco flavor with some pepper, some buttery kind of a toasty aftertaste, and it's smoking really well. So I mentioned earlier that this is comparable to a few other cigars because it's more of a powerhouse kind of a Connceticut, or more of a seriously full-flavored Connceticut, as opposed to something like I don't know, maybe your standard Ashton, Davidoff, Macanudo, things like that, where they're more, maybe not so much Macanudo, but they're more along the lines of a more laid back, delicate cigar. And this one's not so delicate. The flavors they're pronounced. They jump to the forefront, and they kind of demand your attention. And it's not like your run-of-the-mill Connceticut in the sense that I could easily smoke this right now at 5 o'clock. I could smoke it at the end of the day. It's got enough strength and flavor that it's not sort of, I don't know, being difficult to smoke, or it doesn't demand your attention. I don't have to focus on the cigar and nothing else. I'd be just as happy just sitting here reading if I weren't listening to a podcast. So far it's off to a really good start. I'm really enjoying it, and I'm babbling a bit. So with that said, I'm gonna come just sort of melt into my chair again, listen to some more Talking Heads style podcast, and then I will be back and we'll take a look at the second third. Here I am talking about Talking Head podcast, and meanwhile you're looking right at me and it's more or less a talking head. Anyway, alright, well, I'm back and still plugging along on my EP Carrillo New Wave, and this thing's going great. Still smoking beautifully, lots of smoke, nice and dense, easy through the sinus, yada yada yada. Same thing as the last third, and there hasn't really been much change in the flavor. I'm getting a little bit of that cedar taste again. It seems to have sort of transitioned to a come and go kind of a thing. Every couple of puffs, it presents itself, and it's nice and light, and then a couple more puffs later, it's gone. I'm not picking it up anymore. And I don't know whether it was just because of the cedar sleeve that was packaged with the sampler, or if it's just a flavor profile within the cigar, because I don't remember getting that flavor in the Elencos. So that makes me think that it may be a flavor within the blend, and not necessarily a flavor that was picked up from the piece of cedar that was in with the packaging. Outside of that, I'm getting a little bit of pepper, still the same. It's got just a nice rich tobacco flavor with a nice buttery, toasty kind of an aftertaste. The finish is easy on the palate. It's nice and smooth. I don't feel as though my palate's been beat up or it's getting tired. And I don't imagine it's going to be that way as I wrap up the cigar. I think this is something that's fairly light and easy on the palate, but does deliver a lot of flavor and medium body. That's pretty much all there is to really talk about. I mean, when you put all those components together, I think it makes for a fantastic cigar. It's going really well. I'm enjoying this a lot, and even though this is only my second sample, I'm beginning to think that this could very well be my new favorite Connceticut. And I know I shouldn't be telling you that now. I mean, I've got the hooks in. I got to keep it for the rest of the video. And here I'm kind of giving it up, saying that this is one of my favorite Connecticut's. But it really is. I was a big fan of the Oliva Connceticut because of its flavor intensity and the body behind it. I mean, I like milder cigars from time to time, but the ones I reach for most often are cigars that are maybe medium-bodied, full flavor. I like the full flavor, and it doesn't matter if it doesn't matter what the wrapper is. I want a full-flavored cigar, even if it's a morning cigar. I don't mind all that extra flavor. It's the extra body and the nicotine kick in the morning that makes me shy away from certain brands. But in this case, or in most cases, I'm reaching for a cigar that's full-flavored, or at least I want a cigar that's full-flavored. And this cigar is really delivering on that front. And as a result, I'm really, really happy with it. And the fact that this cigar is like $5.25 is really impressive. With Ernesto Perez Carrillo, being a boutique manufacturer, we've seen a lot of his cigars, priced up around the $10 point. The inaugural 2009, I think, was $9. The limited edition 2010 was, I would imagine it's priced the same as the Elencos, where the smallest size is like $9.50 and the rest are 10 and 12, or I think it's 10 and 12. So, and even the short run, I think that was up around 6 to 7, if memory serves. But to see a boutique manufacturer with a cigar that is in the $5 price range, I think that's fantastic. This is another cigar kind of like the La Traviata, where you've got a really solid cigar for a very fair price, and if it offered no more than that, I think it's going to be a big success. So I like it. I like it even more that it's $5.25, and I'm looking forward to smoking more. So I'm just kind of hanging out, listening to as I mentioned, a gun podcast, and that kind of made me think of some other stuff that I've been listening to lately. If you haven't listened to the interview with Jerry on the Cigar Authority, I would highly suggest you do that. It's like my daughter is stirring. See how that goes. But if you haven't listened to that interview, I would strongly suggest you do it. I think Jerry did an amazing job presenting information both about Stogie Review and the cigar community, and the blogosphere as a whole. He made some really insightful comments, and the interview went great. I was really happy with it. And actually, it was the first time I'd listened to the Cigar Authority, and that interview was kind of what kicked off my looking into it. And I was impressed with the show. It was really good. So I'm going to definitely check it out again in the future, even if Jerry's not on it, and maybe keep up with it, because I did enjoy it. And my daughter's wide awake, standing up in her crib. Okay, we'll see how long she stays quiet for, and I'll talk a little bit more. I also watched the Stogie 411 show with Mike Forey and Mike from Mike Stogies, and I thought that was a great first show. They did an interview with, I think his name is George Rodriguez from Rodrigo Cigars, and there was just some great information about his startup, or how he got into the business, and how things worked for him. And it was a very enjoyable interview. I really liked sitting down and listening to that. So I'd suggest checking out both of those if you haven't already, and check it out. So I've got to put my cigar down for a minute, go check on my daughter, and see if my wife's home from grocery shopping. If she is, I'll run right back downstairs and finish my cigar off. If not, this review may get a little tricky at this point. But that's where we're at. Really enjoying the cigar, giving you some suggestions for things to listen to, and I'll be back. Sit tight. Alright, well, I am back. My wife's home and was able to take care of my daughter now that she's awake, so there was no real lull in between when I set that cigar down at the last segment and ran upstairs, and when I came back down and picked it up again. In fact, the time frame was so short, the cigar was still lit and ready to go when I picked it up. So back to the way the cigar is performing. I really can't say enough about it. It's burning beautifully. Nice, even burn line, light colored ash. It holds its shape really well. I haven't had any unexpected drops into my lap. I don't have any flaking sort of drifting around the room. No problems with the draw. A little bit of resistance, and it's providing really dense, thick smoke, and lots of it. Easy to get through the sinus. And when I say it's easy to get through the sinus, I don't mean that some cigars are like more difficult to do than others, although sometimes they are. But I have trouble retrohaling smoke that is real thin and airy, and I don't get much of anything through my sinus. But when it's thick and billowing and dense, it's really easy for me to retrohale and got a lot of aroma out of it. And in this case, it's really easy to roll the smoke out through the nose and pick up lots of aroma. Across the palate, I'm getting a little bit of pepper, There is a little bit of bitterness that I find common with the Connceticut shade wrapper. It's more present now than it was earlier on. Actually, I barely noticed the bitterness early on, but now it's laying on the palate a little heavier. The finish is smooth. It's buttery. It's leaving a bit of sort of a toasty kind of aftertaste, and it hangs on the palate for about a minute and totally dissipates. It's not leaving me feel tired on the palate. I mentioned in the Alenkos review that was a type of cigar that once I was done finishing it, I needed a break between another cigar. This one I could easily transition from this one to another one in say 10 or 15 minutes. If I were at a cigar shop, that's what happens a lot of times. If I'm planning on being there for an extended period of time, I'll smoke one cigar. I'll be cigarless for about 10 minutes and then I'll light up another one. So this is the type of cigar that I could easily do that with. The Alenkos, on the other hand, I would need some time in between, otherwise I'd feel kind of burned out. The flavor level is still very full. The body is still medium. And flavor-wise, I'm getting a little bit of pepper through the sinus. The Spanish cedar flavor is a little heavier. And I'm even getting a little bit of like a leathery taste. And again, you know, you roll that all into one, you get a very complex, dynamic cigar that's got rich flavors, and, you know, incorporate the burning characteristics, and you've got a cigar that's performing really well. Again, for a price point of $5.25 per stick for the Robusto, this is absolutely something that I would go looking for in a cigar shop. As a matter of fact, this is something I'm going to recommend that Sir Stogie's carries, because, you know, I kind of want to smoke more of them. I'm not quite sure what the box price is going to be when they roll out. I would imagine they're boxes of 20, so, you know, however that works out with the typical cigar shop discount of box over singles. But I think this is a very affordable cigar, and this falls right in line with the way the La Traviata was received. It's got lots of flavor. It's a good, solid cigar, and it came in at a very fair price point. And this cigar is doing the exact same thing. Good, solid cigar at a very fair price point. I mean, if this didn't have a Connceticut shade wrapper on it, I could see this being, you know, $5, maybe $4.95, something like that. So you do see an increase with Connceticut wrapper just because they tend to be a little more expensive. But I really don't mind paying that $5.25 for a cigar that performs this well. You know, those $4.95 La Traviatas are awesome, but you know, I really wouldn't mind the extra. I really don't mind the extra 30 cents with the New Wave Connceticut. It's a completely different cigar, different taste, and all that. But comparatively speaking, for, you know, in the sort of keeping things in mind on the whole value front, you know, I think this is a very solid value cigar. And you know, I really think I've rambled on enough. Actually, I wasn't even supposed to review this cigar. I was talking to Jerry, and or he sent me a direct message the other day, and he said, "Hey, you know, did I read your comment right? You're going to review the EP Carrillo New Wave." And I told him, "Well, if you've got that review underway, go ahead and do it, because I've only got the 2 samples, and you know, I was planning on doing it, but if you've got more samples than I do, then, you know, really go ahead and do it." And he was planning on doing the review, and then he had some problems with the video, and you know, he got back to me and said, "Hey, look, you know, this video is just not going to work. It's, you know, I had a problem with the video setup." So I kind of just spur of the moment fired up my second and last EP Carrillo New Wave, and I've been really happy with it. In the email that I got from Ernie a few weeks ago, or shortly after I got these cigars, was that these weren't out yet, but they would be out around the end of March. So by the time you're seeing this video, those cigars should either be shipping or have landed in area cigar shops that carry EP Carrillo product. So this shouldn't be too much of a problem to find. And that's going to close it out. So until next time, happy smoking.